All right, I'm going to take you through another question from the Thinking Skills sample test that was released the other day. Now, this is question 12. As luck would have it, this is a question type that I've been working on with my students lately in class. It's one where you get given a whole heap of information about 5 people. It's usually 5 people, and you have to sort the people into categories to find out a certain question. So it could be a very daunting question for someone who hasn't done one like this before. All right, I'll go through the question to begin with. 5 houses stand together in a row. One person lives in each house. Each person likes a different sport. They all use different forms of transport. We also know. Okay, so if you've done this type of question before, you would know you're going to have to sort through all of this data, and it's going to help you figure out, who lives where, what sport they like, what type of transport they have. Let's look at what the question is too. Using the information above, who lives in the last house on the right of the row? So that's important to know. We only really need to sort the people. We don't need to fill in all of the categories. And I've already taken the liberty of creating a grid here. So I've made it this size because I know there's going to be 5 people. I need spaces for 5 people, and I need to have headings for the variables that we're sorting them by. So we have sport, and we have transport. Sport and transport, sport in both words. All right, then we will put the 5 names across the top of the grid here. All right, so let's sort through the information. I'll show you how you could fill this grid in. Mr. Green likes tennis and lives next to Miss White, who is on the left end of the row and drives a van. All right, so Miss White is the first one we can fill in because she's on the left end of the row, which will be here. So we'll put White. Do we have any more information? She drives a van, goes into transport. All right, Mr. Green, he's next to Miss White, so we can put him there. He likes tennis and lives next to Miss White. All right, so that's all the information. We got everything out of that bit. All right, next point. Dr. Gray uses a taxi. That's useless at this point because we don't know where Dr. Gray is going to go. So the student who understands these types of problems would know to quickly move on from that, but come back to it as soon as they can utilize that information if necessary. The person who likes badminton lives in the middle of the row. We can use that because there's 5 rows, 5 people. The middle row will be badminton. Right. We move on. Miss Orange drives a car and doesn't like swimming. All right, we can't use that just yet. The person who likes swimming does not have a motorcycle. All right, again, and this is an important thing to note that a lot of this information has just been put in here to confuse students. You wouldn't want to waste too much time thinking about that information as it's not necessary yet. All right, Mrs. Black likes football. She lives next to Miss Orange and 2 houses from Dr. Gray. All right, so here's the part where the logic comes into play. We've got these 3 people. They're the 3 people we haven't listed yet. So we should be able to sort them in these 3 spaces. So we know that Miss Black likes football and she has to be 2 houses away from Dr. Gray. Okay, so there has to be a gap of 2 between them. So it's either that Mrs. Black is here in the middle and Dr. Gray on the end, or Dr. Gray is in the middle and Mrs. Black is in the end. And then because we have badminton here, we know Mrs. Black can't go there because she likes football. So we put Mrs. Black on the end. We put football in here. That means Dr. Gray goes in the middle, and he is the one who likes badminton, and he's 2 houses away from Mrs. Black, and Miss Orange lives in here. And actually, we don't need to go any further. All right, we're now able to solve the problem, which is who lives in the last house on the right of the row. Mrs. Black, it's C. Okay, so you don't need this final information. Yeah, the person who rides a bicycle also likes football. It's Mrs. Black. You could fill it in, but yeah, they'd be looking to see if students understand that. You've already solved what you need to know. You don't need to go on with that. It's possibly even, would be, I imagine, theoretically possible to fill in the entire grid with the rest of the go back and figure out all that information, but there's no need to it. So again, I'm actually pretty happy to see this type of question in the test because, yeah, I've been doing much harder ones than this with my students where you actually really have to make almost inferences. You know, you have to, like, the only hard part of this was the logic part where you had to figure out, well, you know, badminton there, so Mrs. Black can't be there. So there was contradictory logic again. So I think, look, this one could take a few minutes to solve for a student who hasn't done this before. So as soon as you see this type of problem, yeah, you want to know you've got to graph it like this, do it in a manner that's as quick for you to do as possible. I would think practicing this type of exercise would be very beneficial for students because this whole type of thinking is really good for improving logic.